Greetings, sports fans. Welcome back to another episode of Vision TV, specifically the Off the Bench podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very, very special guest, Simon Preston, press officer for the JFF. Many of you might know him from YouTube or TVJ. His YouTube channel is Reggae Boys Commentary. Simon, how you doing, man?
Sir Eddie, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. I'm doing very well, thanks. Hope you and the family are also doing quite well.
Yes, doing well. Different environment today, but things are going well. Can't complain.
We'll have to do what we have to do.
Definitely cannot complain. First of all, let's kick it off with the Reggae Girlz. Historic performance against France in the World Cup in Australia. Finally we got a point. Tremendous performance, a gritty performance, as I said in one of my videos. 4 years has passed, and we look at a totally different team. We have better players. Thoughts on the performance against France?
A very disciplined performance, especially defensively, and you could see the growth as well in the team. As you know, the last World Cup in France, there were numerous players that were in college, in their last year of college, and now many of those players have matriculated into being professional footballers as well. So you can see the growth tangibly and also intangibly as well, as 11 players are returning from the last World Cup. And I do think the continuity is incredibly important. And to put in a performance as we did against a team that is number 5 in the world, and also a team that is spoken on many persons' lips as a team to contend for the title as well, behind the likes of the United States and England, I think we should all be extremely proud by such a performance and to create the history to pick up a point, especially against one of the giants of European football. So I do think it was a performance worth remembering, and I know that it is certainly one that will give momentum to the team heading into this weekend, where we want to create even more history in the tournament.
All right, as we hunt to create more history, as I put it, we will be without our talisman, Khadija Bunny Shaw. The JFF appealed the red card, and it was not successful. FIFA turned it down. Thoughts on that? Was that the right call from FIFA? And can we get the 3 points without Khadija Bunny Shaw?
Difficult one, because when you look at the video footage, you say to yourself, where was the contact made? And for me, I'm saying to myself, was the second card that was given by the referee, was that something that was necessary? So honestly, it is disappointing not to have her in relation to the second game against Panama. It really is disappointing, especially this is a player that has scored against Panama the 2 of the last 3 times that we've actually defeated them as well. One to qualify for the World Cup and a friendly back in 2019 as well. So it's important, especially knowing a conquer of opposition that we know so well. It is disappointing, but the good news is that we have 9 other attackers who are chomping at the bit, especially in training right now in Australia, to ensure that they can be in that starting 11, be that number 9, or be part of that front 3. There's so much attacking gems, and I know for Coach Lauren Donaldson and the entire staff, it's going to be an even greater headache when it comes to selecting that front 3 or even front 2 as well into that encounter against Panama. So I'm not concerned in relation to a lack of goals, because I do feel that we have players that are coming from good form, especially from their club duties, to be able to tackle the Panamanians this weekend in particular. I do think the camp in Amsterdam was helpful because a lot of finishing drills took place, and also the match against Morocco, we showed evidence of being able to score as well. So I'm not worried by not having Bunny. She's a great player, a world-class talent, but I do think that we have the goals to be able to get 3 points.
Yeah, and not only get 3 points, but I'm thinking get out of the group. We are currently third tied on points, with France, Brazil ahead with 3 points, beating the Panamanians.
Mhm.
2 games left, Panama and Brazil. Can we get out of the group? I'm thinking we can. We can get a win against Panama, and maybe we get a draw against Brazil. Who knows? What say you?
Most definitely. You start into the permutations and the scenarios in your head right now. And of course, I do think it's possible to end the group with 5 points, possibly even seven. But I do think it's really possible to be able to get to the round of 16 and cast our eyes on whether it's Germany or Colombia within the round of 16. I do think it's a grand possibility. I know when you do the math on things, what I had in my head was if the Brazilians can beat the French and Jamaica defeats Panama, then Brazil would be on 6, Jamaica on 4, France on 1, and Panama on 0. That means that Brazil against Jamaica, a point for both teams does both teams well. Brazil would get to top the group and Jamaica would get to the round of 16. So that would suit teams very well. So for me,
Right, right.
I would love that a scenario of that nature, But I do think that being able to come to get 5 points is absolutely realistic from our standpoint, and maybe even more. So yes, to answer your question, getting to the round of 16, it would be historic. It would be great, and I do think that it is a reality of happening. And for me, I think it's about the FIFA ranking that's going to be impacted greatly by this. And the higher you
Yeah.
are, the demand to be able to play you as a nation in friendly matches, the demand for our players to play in top flight leagues like in England, like in Spain, like in Germany will only increase. So the spin-offs are endless where that is concerned.
All right, let's switch flanks to the Reggae Boys. And, we are aware that you were part of the delegation as, press officer. And I must congratulate you publicly on the great job that you did throughout the tournament. Just talk a little bit about how you got that opportunity and, some of the highlights, of traveling with the boys in the Gold Cup.
Well, I've been thinking about because I had an idea that a question of that nature would be posed to me at some point, and I would say that it was the best summer of my life because this is something that I always wanted to do. I believe that I gave my 100%, and I'm hoping that that is good enough for future opportunities down the road. It was right up my alley in every aspect, and for those that know me quite well from the work that I've done on Reggae Boys commentary from 2016 onwards, and from 2010 from a JFF standpoint, persons would know my style has been very promotive of Jamaican work and very positive in sort of the message. So for me, everything just clicked from that sort of standpoint in terms of how the tournament went, having information on the players. So for me, it felt like the perfect environment, the perfect job
Right.
for me. It did not feel like work. I know it comes across quite cliche to a lot of people, but for me, it came as something that was tremendously enjoyable. It's not like somebody that is in a 9 to 5 and they're going through the motions and just checking the clock to see what time their shift ends. For me, it didn't matter if the job took 18 hours or 20 hours. It was until the work is done, until the job is done. So for me, I was extremely privileged to receive an opportunity of this nature. I do think semifinals is still something commendable, something that we should all be happy about. Is it the end goal? No. Of certainly, we would have. The goal was to go further in the competition, and Coach Halgrimson stated that in many press conferences we were here to win it. I still think though that going to a semifinals is a massive feat, and of course, as you know, the first time in 4 years for this to happen as well. So for me, I take a lot of positives from the tournament. There are things that we did for the first time that haven't been done in a decade and even longer, like beating Guatemala, beating Trinidad for the first time in 6 years, getting to a semifinals for the first time in 4 years, having the youngest Jamaican to score in Gold Cup history as well, getting a clean sheet in the knockout stages as well against a Guatemala team. So I do think that there are many positives to build upon heading into the Nations League. And of course, that itself will serve as a great platform towards the big summer that lies ahead in 2024, which has potentially a Copa America and, of course, World Cup qualifying as well. So I looked at this summer as a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yeah, I know you said that it was the best summer of your life, but what was a standout moment? What was that? the best moment for Simon Preston, the individual, not necessarily as a press officer, but you know,
That's a good
best
question.
moment.
Yeah. All right. So for me, honestly, it would have to be the game against Guatemala. And the reason why I say that is because of coming into that fixture. Cincinnati, Ohio, the state as a whole, is not really a state known for a huge Jamaican population. We know what Florida is like, New York, New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
Maryland, etc. Ohio, not necessarily. The moment we're on the team bus and heading towards the stadium, you see a sea of blue and white. So the Central Americans had their numbers, and you could basically say 95% of that stadium were Guatemalan fans. And I'm sure whether somebody was watching on television or actually there in Ohio, they could feel what the Guatemalans brought and be able to endure what that 12th man had and still be able to come away with the victory. And of course, decisions by referee in that game that might not necessarily have gone with the Jamaicans, and to come away with the victory, that for me was the best moment in terms of the matches itself at the tournament. Of course, individually, being able to mingle with Coach Halgrimson, coaches John Wall, Goodmundo Hriderson, the goalkeeper coach. Those were special moments as well. I have a passion, me personally, I have a passion for giving people information that they didn't know or they don't know. For me, that gives me a lot of joy when persons are aware of what is around them, different teams. Of course, the coaching staff that are from the Nordic nations like Iceland and Sweden, they wouldn't know a whole degree in relation to the history of these Central American teams. So to be able to provide information of this nature and prepare them in terms of full press conferences, maybe a few tidbits on the teams itself, for me, that gave me the greatest joy in that time frame at the tournament.
Yeah, good stuff. And that was added information, because a typical press officer would not necessarily know these type of things. So I think you did a wonderful job. I must say, give it to you. Very knowledgeable. But for me, in terms of memorable moment, there
Mm.
were a lot. Obviously getting the results and seeing the fans happy were good. But that moment when the team sang John Legend's "All of Me" around the piano, it still gives me goosebumps. That moment was wonderful. But we didn't see you in the video, Simon. Where were you?
I was the man that was holding the camera.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But I know you would have seen a video in Austria. There was a team bonding activity. We were playing ABC Fast or Slow. I think
Yeah,
me
yeah,
and me in that one. Yeah, that was another moment of that nature as well, where players from all walks of life, from the diaspora, from here, from the island, bonding together, doing an activity and great banter. And you know what it's like in Jamaica when we're playing any sort of game, even domino. The
yeah.
loud noise, the competitive nature, and it was absolutely very fun. And the coaching staff, especially Coach Algrimson, was taken aback by the competitiveness of a simple game of that nature, and just to see how
Mhm.
Jamaicans are competitive. If anything, if me and you were to play marbles, it might be the same extent. So Coach Algrimson learned that about Jamaicans as well, regardless of what it is. It could be Monopoly. We'll take it extremely serious. So that was another fun moment as well.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
any stories with any of the players? Any or anything that went on that you
I
would
think
like to share?
I think we have a talented set of players, and the 22 that came for the tournament itself, you definitely saw a different side to them, and different meaning multi-talented, because Andre Blake, the man behind the
Yeah,
piano,
I wasn't aware of that.
yeah, supremely talented, and I'm sure he'll give a lot of credit to Clarendon College and UConn for that. But you have players in the squad that you could say could enter dancing dynamite tomorrow morning because of their ability to be able to
We
dance. And
saw that in the celebrating videos.
right, exactly. So
Yeah,
so being able
Whisper,
to do that, exactly.
Corey Burke, and so on.
Exactly. Yeah, those in particular, and being able to there are artists as well. I think we find if Massacre needs a break or Alkaline needs a break, we have some alternatives. So we certainly have backup artists ready,
Okay.
and jumping at the bit.
You work closely with the coaching staff. How was that experience?
I enjoyed it. It was very professional. Everything was to a T in terms of organization from a day-to-day structure. You know exactly what time is what, whether that might be breakfast, whether that might be team meeting, whether that might be training, information in relation to time for press conferences, the time that you leave out for that particular occasion, the time for flights, the time that you bring down your bags to the lobby. So it's very structured, very organized and clear as well. And I appreciate that sort of approach, that everybody's on the same page. And also the players were able to take the information and it was clear for them as well. So I appreciated that a lot as well with his coaching staff. And another point is that, especially with Coach Algrimson, coaches John Wall, Maron Gordon, Coach Ryderson, and all the physios, the doctors, everybody takes everybody's opinion, everybody takes everybody's view, their expressions on board before making a decision on any matter, and I appreciate that greatly. That everybody has a say, everybody's opinions are heard as we have our regular staff meetings, and I appreciate that greatly because I think that everybody has a role to say, even if your jurisdiction might not be, for an example, I might not be a kit man, but I can say, well, it's a 10-minute drive to the stadium, yes, but I do think the kit man should leave an hour before or 2 hours before based on what I know about the traffic in Chicago or something like that. So even if that might not be your portfolio, it was an environment, and it is an environment, I should say, where persons can express their views and offer encouragement and or advice. And I think that was tremendously refreshing to take place.
All right. In the semifinal, we made it to the semifinal, and we were a bit humbled by the Mexicans, losing 3 goals to 0. How disappointed would you say the players were, and staff and everybody else after that defeat?
From a player standpoint, disappointment, despondent, speechless. So it really showed how much of a disappointment it was not to get over the semi-final hurdle in this tournament. At the final whistle, you could see it as well, where players had their heads down, or some of them looking up into the sky with sad expressions on their face. Going into the dressing room, it was the same sort of expression, somber, poignant. And from the staff perspective, it was similar. But Coach Hallgrimson, as a leader, as he always has been, I think Coach Hallgrimson gave the staff the lift that they needed and that the staff needed to be able to look forward to the next assignment, which is the Nations League, and gave everybody that sense of confidence that they had an impact, and this is just the start of what is to come. So that was also a moment that was quite sobering.
Yeah, and you touched on the Nation League. I'll be closing off with this. Give the Jamaican fans, a message in terms of we have a lot of home games to start the Nation League campaign. What do you have to say to the Jamaican fans?
What I would say to Jamaican fans, not only those on the island, but all across the diaspora and the world, is that the 12th man, you are incredibly needed for this project, because we are 12 months away from the World Cup qualifiers. And in order to build that momentum, in order to build that knowledge that I know you guys will need about the players, it starts from your attendance to the games, to get to know them, to know who's number 10, to get to know who is number 12. I'm sure you all would embrace the opportunity to see Demarai Gray's home debut, embrace the opportunity to see Joel Latibeaudière's home debut, and other players as well who have not yet played on Jamaican soil. So whichever squad Coach Hallgrimson selects, get behind the team, because this is a process and this is something that is building in the right direction, a positive direction, and you're going to see the team continue to grow from strength to strength. And this is also a qualifier as well for a massive tournament, which is the Copa America.
Opa, right.
So you as fans, generally speaking, have a massive role to get behind the team as well. So it all starts from being at the games, and we'll need every single one of you. So we need all 30,000 of you in the national stadium come September. Two home games, Haiti and Honduras, because the away games are in October. No games in Jamaica in October. So September is the moment.
So there have been rumors. I know I said the last thing, but I have to ask. There have been rumors that we will be getting a few midfielders or players added to this roster for the Nation League. Without naming names, thumbs up if there's a possibility of that happening. Thumbs down if you think that's not possible.
Possibility. It is a possibility, so I would say yes. And I'm sure Coach Algrimson, Roy Simpson will ensure that all the paperwork is done for whoever is involved, so they can be part of the national program quite soon. So we still have some time. Let us get behind the girls at this point in time. And then after the World Cup, we'll get behind them for the Olympic qualifiers and the boys for the Nations League. But I would say to Jamaicans, for the time being, just put your heart into the girls, and then after that, we'll shift focus to the Nations League.
All right. Well said. Well said. And I just want to wish the girls all the best. I hope you guys can make it to the run of 16. And then who knows what can happen from there. So we're 100% behind the Reggae Girlz. Let's go, Reggae Girlz. Big up Tiffany Cameron. Don't touch the feelers yet, but we're hoping. Tiffany, we're waiting, and all the other players. We love you all. And, that's a good way to end. I want to thank Simon Preston, JFF press officer, for joining me today on the Off the Bench podcast. Simon, where can the people find you?
So on YouTube, it's Reggae Boys Commentary. On Twitter, it's Simon Preston, and on Instagram, it's Simon Preston. And you can private message me, and we'll be in touch.
All right, there you have it. That was Simon Preston. I'm Eddie Gona. You know the drill. Always remember, like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, I'm Reggae Girl Marlo Sweatman. You're watching Eddie Vision TV. Like, share, and subscribe.